cancer, heart disease, suicide, mosquitoes, smoking. These things kill more people than the COVID did. But none of those are talked about. No. And everyone still moves in fear when mosquitoes kill more people. Why aren't people talking about mosquito spray?
There's something really powerful about this, and it says a lot about the human psychology, which is the notion of a transmissible disease that transfers from person to person. If you wanted to create an authoritarian regime, you can't ask for a better gift than this, because it causes people, and this has been the worst thing that's come out of all this, is millions of people have been trained to fear other human beings, right? Simply seeing someone's face, somebody breathing near you, someone coming too close to you, right? People have now been programmed to fear that.
All right, welcome guys. This is Peter Voogd, the founder of the prestigious Game Changers Academy, and thank you for tuning into our monthly Millionaire video series where we interview the world's most elite, successful, and game-changing entrepreneurs, CEOs, and entertainers, and people really that I have massive respect for that are not just making a difference in their industries, but really in the world. And today we have someone that I've been super excited about. He's an independent rapper, had a new CD come out called World of Zuby, host of the Real Talk podcast, author of Strong Advice, which is a fitness guide that we connected before. And he said they've been selling out like hotcakes. So he has to continue to reship his books out and stuff like that, which is exciting because people just love his message. And there's some controversy to it, which we'll get into, which I like that as well. He does not fear people, and he really speaks the truth, which is so needed right now in this economy. He was born in England, raised in Saudi Arabia, and is a graduate of Oxford University. He has sold over 30,000 albums independently, performed in 8 countries, achieved over 10 million online views. He's been on some of the biggest shows and podcasts in the world. He's been touring the past couple of weeks and really has been making a name for himself the past couple of years. And I think personally, he's just getting started. So Zuby, welcome, my man. Pleasure to have you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate the intro, man.
Where's been your favorite spot the last couple of months traveling wise, maybe in the US or anywhere you've been the last couple of months? Anything stand out?
Yeah, sure. Well, before I came to the US, because there's still the UK-US travel ban that's been in place since last year. So I actually came via Turkey. So I spent a couple of weeks out in Istanbul, and Istanbul was really cool. I'd never been there before. That was great. And then from Istanbul, I flew to Houston. And then I spent a little while in Texas. Texas thus far is my favorite state in the USA, as a lot of people know, until we'll see if anywhere is able to beat it, but we don't know. There's tough competition. So I've loved Istanbul, and I've loved every city I've been to in Texas thus far.
Texas is one of my favorite states as well, man. So I want to start with this. Speaking truth in a world where sometimes truth is frowned upon if it's not in agreement with somebody else. And you move with such confidence and such certainty. And I love that about you. One of the reasons that you stood out to me and really rose to the top of people that are preaching their message right now, whether it's an entertainer, artist, podcast, whatever, is you're all about truth. You're all about what you feel like is right, and you don't care who you're talking to. I feel like in this economy right now, especially with the youth, there's a lot of fearing people. There's a lot of holding back and just kind of succumbing to what's average or what your friends think. And very few people speak up. Where did that come from? Do you remember, was it childhood? Was it you were sick of being somebody else, or have you always spoke the truth?
Yeah, I've always been like that. It's just that it's become more public over time. So in private and personal conversations with friends, with family, with anybody really, I've always been someone who's willing to speak my mind and to say what I believe to be true and have open discussions and debates with people, even on potentially controversial or sensitive issues. And all that really happened was in 2018 in particular, I just started doing that a little bit more publicly. I just started sharing some more of these thoughts because I wasn't feeling a lot of my thoughts and feelings and views being articulated in the public scenario. And what's interesting is now when I speak and when I do things and when I'm traveling, something that a lot of people say to me is that you say what I think, right? Either I feel like I'm not able to say it, or perhaps I don't know how to articulate it in the same way that you do. So I didn't necessarily know that the way that I think and the way I view the world was anything particularly special or unique. I think that 90% of what I say should be common sense and isn't particularly edgy or controversial. But I think that the world has shifted so much, and we're living in a sort of multi-layered mass delusion, especially in the modern Western world, on a whole bunch of different topics and issues. And then you've got the sort of self-censorship out there with a lot of people feeling this chill, a lot of people feeling scared, sometimes rationally, sometimes I'd say irrationally. And it's led to this climate where people who are willing to just be themselves and be authentic and seek the truth and try to speak the truth, and also just encourage conversation, not try to shut people down and kick people off and deplatform people, all of that. I think a lot of people are looking for those voices, and no matter what sector you're in. So I think that sort of played a key role in my rise over the past couple of years, even though I've been grinding for 15 years. I put out my first project in 2006 musically, but it's in the last few years where things have really gone on a totally different trajectory.
It's funny when people think that you might have just blown up, but you've been putting out music since 2006. They don't see that behind the scenes grind. So what about the backlash and the hate? I think that's what people can't get over. Is there any words before we really dive in to the youth of people? Maybe they know the truth. They want to speak the truth. They want to be an advocate, but they're just fearful. Maybe they're fearful of their family, friends, online, haters, comments. How does that just get pushed to the side?
Sure. Well, I think first of all, it's important to recognize that love tends to outweigh hate at least 10 to 1, oftentimes 50 to 1. But as human beings, we're sensitive to negative emotions. We're sensitive to negative feedback. If you get 100 positive comments on a YouTube video, or you get 100 positive emails or 100 positive pieces of feedback on anything, and then you get one negative one, you get one critical one, you get one hater, that's the one that stands out to you. That's just how our brains are wired. And so it's important to recognize that and be aware of it, because a lot of people ask me, how do you deal with the hate? How do you deal with the blowback? But very few people ask me, man, how do you deal with the love? How do you deal with being able to travel to all these different places and people love what you're doing and you're getting all of these accolades? How do you stay humble throughout all this? And actually, that may be a more interesting question and a more important one, because that outweighs the hate 100 to 1. So yeah, with what I do, of course there's criticism, but I think if you have a large platform, I mean, if 1,000 people know you, let alone if 100,000 or 1,000,000 plus people know who you are, some people are going to have messed up perceptions of you. Some people are going to like you. Some people won't. Some people will, it's just how it is. Even in the world of music, I think that's a big part of it, because I've been doing music for so long, and you get criticized in music. There's literally no musician who everybody likes. I don't even know if there's a musician who most people like. That's just not how it is. But that doesn't mean you can't be successful. Some people like different genres. Some people just are not into hip hop. Some people hate rock music. Some people don't like pop. Different people like different things. And then even within the genre, people like different artists. And that's also how it is with anything online, whether you're a social media influencer or a podcaster, or you run a business. Your business isn't for absolutely everybody, unless maybe you run like a Walmart or something like that. But most businesses are just for certain people, and messages resonate with different people. So don't dwell on it so much. I think people dwell too much on the negative. And also it doesn't matter. I mean, if you get criticism from people who are your fan base or followers or audience, like people who actually like you and are offering something constructive, then that's valuable and that should be taken on board. If it's just somebody who doesn't even really follow what you're doing and is just trying to get a reaction out of you, then, as they say, you don't need to feed the trolls.
I feel like there's nothing more rewarding either than speaking your truth and not hiding behind something because of a certain atmosphere you're in. And I see a lot of the love you get, and I'm sure that's rewarding, seeing all the love at all these different places you go in the US, being from the UK. That's probably been amazing the past couple of months, just seeing how many fans you have that really not just love your message and your music, but what you stand for.
Dude, it's been phenomenal. I was last out in the US in 2019, and I built up a big audience by then, but what's happened in the past 2 years, I mean, I've seen the numbers go up online, but it's another thing to be in Miami or Dallas or Houston or New York City or Istanbul. Like, I got stopped in the street in Istanbul almost every single day. I was like, no one's going to know me here in Turkey. And I had people stopping me, man, most common thing, thank you for speaking up. I love what you're saying. I'm worried about this. I'm fearful of that, but you've helped to keep me sane, especially through this past 18 months. So all of that is valuable. I mean, when I was just in New York 2 weeks ago, I mean, I've been doing meetups in different cities, and in New York, I didn't specifically know I had a lot of followers there. I'd literally put out a tweet just saying, hey, I'm in NYC. I might do a meetup. Who wants to hang out? And like 170 or so people DM'd me. And I was immediately like, oh gosh, like I don't even know. I thought it was going to be like a couple dozen or something.
You're going to stop doing meetups soon, bro.
Dude, so we had to do two. We had to do one in Central Park, and then we had to do one of my friends, Ralph, you know, he owns a whole restaurant, and he just gave us the whole restaurant. So we ended up doing two, and that's just amazing. That's just a short notice in a city, in a country I'm not even from, a city I'm not even from, all independently. And I'm just like, man, this is powerful. And more than that, all the people were wonderful. People made new friends and connections. I've actually seen photos of those people, some people from that meetup hanging out. Like now I'm no longer in New York now, but they're still meeting up. They're still hanging out. And I'm just like, man, that's amazing. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but that sort of connection is powerful.
It seems like you're creating a movement in a way, which I think is what we need. I remember someone told me a long time ago, a lot of businesses are failing left and right, but movements rarely fail. And you're really creating a movement, which I love. So viral moments, one thing I want to get across from a lot of the younger generation is they're purposely, all they're doing is trying to get viral moments. They're trying to go viral, trying to get all these things. You've been putting in the work for so many years, 15 years. And because you've been so consistent, you don't know what's going to go viral or not, right? You just keep putting in the work. So do you remember one of the first things that went viral the last couple of years that really you were like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect this?
Yeah, the first tweet that went viral to some degree, actually, keep in mind, I've been on Twitter since 2009. The first one that really hit was, do you remember back in 2018 when Kanye West came out with the MAGA hat on? Mm-hmm. Right? I posted a tweet something like, LOL at all the people who are saying that Kanye West is lost. Maybe he's not the lost one. Something like that. And that went viral, and it went viral kind of in like sort of conservative right-wing US Twitter, which was interesting because at this point my audience was primarily in the UK, and that this really resonated with a certain base in the US, and I started getting all these American followers and all these people with like Patriot and MAGA and stuff in their bio, and I was like, oh wow, okay, this is this is kind of interesting. So that was the initial one. And then of course February 2019, I had my infamous female deadlift video where I identified as a woman, broke the British women's deadlift record, and that went absolutely bananas. I think that tweet's done over 15 million impressions now just on Twitter alone. I don't know how many views on YouTube and Facebook, and it keeps going viral. I mean, that was 2.5 years ago now. And sometimes it's like a zombie. It just gets resurrected and people discover it again and it goes viral again and again and again.
It's on every interview. So, I don't even want to ask you about it because every interview you do, that's what they talk about. So I'm like, I'm not even going to talk about that because it's talked about so much. If you guys want to learn about what happened there, it's actually quite entertaining. You can watch his other interviews unless you feel like you want to discuss it, but it was just, that was an interesting whole dynamic. I think
I mean, after a decade plus of grinding, that was not the piece of content that I expected was going to introduce me to millions of people, let alone people internationally. But that's how it happened. And what's so great is because of all that work I'd put in previously and all my back catalog and everything I've built up, once people discovered me off the back of that, then a lot of people also discovered my music, my podcast, my general thinking. It led to so many opportunities. And because I'd done all of this prep work, I was then able to snowball that into a much bigger thing. All I needed was for people to discover me, for people to know who Zuby is. And then it's like, cool, once people know that, they can discover all this other thing. Having a tweet go viral is not, it happens all the time. You'll sometimes see a tweet going super crazy viral. You go on the person's profile, they've got like 700 followers or something, and they haven't capitalized anything off of it. And a week later, everyone's kind of forgotten about it. But in my case, it wasn't just the tweet specifically that went viral. I was able to parlay that into I myself going viral and getting a ton of opportunities to, go on Joe Rogan, go on Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Sky News, Fox News, BBC, all of these different platforms, and really amplify my main message out to more and more people.
And I mean, yes, you were polarizing, but like you said, you already had a message. You had something concrete that you built a foundation. And that's why fans see that video. They might not even know that you do music, but then they say, oh my gosh, this guy's the real deal. So it's important to make sure that you're not just focusing on the viral moments and you actually are continuing to speak your truth, continuing to put out content, continuing to be consistent as well. And you got deplatformed as well with quite a bit of followers. And I want to talk about this because I like your perspective. What I really want to do is bring out how you think to help other people think different and think like you in a way that is congruent to them. You got deplatformed, you turned it into a good thing, and the brand continued to blow up. All because you chose to adapt and pivot instead of being sad and just sit there like, oh man, I got deplatformed. So talk about that moment and what your mindset was.
Yeah, sure thing. So I got deplatformed on Twitter last year for saying, okay, dude. Literally, that was the only thing I said.
Talk about the story, the context too.
Okay. So I had a tweet going viral, which was that single women could do to land themselves a great guy. And it was like, number 1, be in shape. Number 2, grow your hair long. Number 3, learn to cook. Number 4, be sweet. Number 5, don't be annoying. Something like that. And this list was going viral on Twitter. You know, some people were agreeing, disagreeing. It was causing a little bit of a firestorm. And someone responded to it, of another verified account, just saying, hey, I bet I sleep with way more women than you do, and this is terrible advice. And I literally just responded and said, okay, dude. And then a week later, I was on a train from London back home, and I got an email from Twitter saying that my account has been locked for violating their hateful conduct policy. I looked into this, and it said, it may not discriminate or threaten violence against people based on their race, sexuality, gender identity, religion, disability, so on and so forth. And I was like, I'm a nice guy. I don't do that, right? And so I scrolled down on this email, and it says this tweet violated our hateful conduct policy. And I look at it, and it literally says, okay, dude. And I'm like, wait, okay. I thought maybe this is like an error. This is a phishing email or something. So I go on Twitter, and I'm locked out of my account. I'm locked out. It says, your account is violated, Twitter policies, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait, this has to be a mistake, right? How can I get banned for saying, okay, dude? So I actually made an appeal. Assuming maybe it got bombed or something, and people mass reported it, and some algorithm just picked up on it. And so it got reviewed. I got an email the next day. They said they'd done a manual human review, and they can confirm that this tweet does violate our hateful conduct policy. To have your account unlocked, you'll need to delete it and wait for 48 hours. So I'm like, okay, this is nutty. But of course, at this point, I think I had about 200,000 followers on Twitter. So I was like, all right, I want access to that. But I went down to a t-shirt printer just near where I live, and I just got a black t-shirt made, which just said, okay, dude, on it. And then the first tweet I put out when I got my account back was just me dancing to wearing this okay dude t-shirt, and the video got like 500,000 views, and everyone was, because by the way, when I was banned, #FreeZuby and #okay dude were both trending on Twitter. And
I see people wear okay dude shirts. I see people wearing those.
Yeah. So I came out and I just had the shirt on, and then I had a ton of people like, yo, I want that t-shirt, I want that shirt, where can I get that t-shirt? So I just launched the pre-orders very quickly, and hundreds of people bought them. And okay dude became a thing, and then it became a song. I made a song called Okay Dude. It was the first single off my new album. Made a video for it that did well. I released Okay Dude hats, t-shirts, and it ended up becoming one of my most successful songs, and also my most successful merchandise line as well. So I guess the moral of the story is, as they say, when life gives you lemons, you turn it into lemonade.
Man, that's such a cool story, because you didn't let that affect you at all. What were the emotions that you felt? Was there any anger, or are you so is it almost hysterical that they would do that where you were laughing, or a mix of both? Because I'd be a little frustrated at the censorship.
Yeah, it was a mix of both. It was a mix of both, because it was so egregious. I mean, that's not even borderline. Like, no one can see okay dude and be like, oh my gosh, that's
do you feel like it was partly because of some of your other tweets subconsciously that they saw,
honestly,
and they didn't agree with?
It's entirely possible. I don't know who works at Twitter. I don't know who's on their moderation team, so on and so forth. So it's very hard for me to say. Anything I say would just be conjecture and me guessing. But
that just seems way out of pocket. It was. And your post about the women doesn't even sound controversial at all.
No, it's not. But that's also why it was controversial, right? Because people don't like the truth. I mean, my deadlift tweet also wasn't controversial. In a sane world, in any type of sane world, none of this stuff. Very little I say would be controversial if the world were sane, but because we're living through a period of mass psychosis and have been for several years, and that's just been amplified over the past 18 months, people like myself who are just willing to cut through the nonsense and say what other people are thinking are considered controversial or polarizing to some degree. It's not, I don't really consider myself like an agitator or a provocateur, someone who really just goes out of my way to sort of anger people and throw fire. Like, I very rarely attack people. That's something you'll see, actually. I almost never kind of have a social media policy and a world policy. I don't attack people. I might criticize ideas. And if I see something that's nonsensical, I'll say it's nonsensical, but I don't just, I very rarely call someone out or attack someone or anything like that. That's just not how I roll. I try to keep my overall thing very positive, but being positive doesn't mean that you have to, be a wimp either. You can stand up for yourself. Yeah, you can. No, you don't have to tolerate disrespect. You don't have to toe the line on everything. You can be very kind, very polite, but also assertive.
And you're almost in a way a quiet killer, because you seem super happy and a good vibe, but like if you get crossed or certain things happen, you're going to go nuts and you're going to make a song about them. Yeah. which I love. So I want to talk, you talked a lot about the society, the state of the economy. Maybe I have somewhat been in my own world and been under a rock building my business the last 10 years with what I'm doing. I've never seen until 18, maybe 17, 18, 19, how insane our economy is. I feel like how quick people get triggered, the emotional maturity that people are displaying is at an all-time low. There's not a lot of logic. It's a lot of emotion. There's all this fake news. I don't know if it's always been this way or I've just been blind, but the last couple years, have you thought about the root cause of what's causing this right now? Because I've never seen such immaturity and such triggeredness online from things that should be a simple conversation between two people.
Yeah. I feel like the Matrix broke around 2014. I feel like in 2014, there was, reality hard forked or something, and we sort of entered a strange world. I think that, and then that got accelerated through 2015, 2016. And now with the whole pandemic situation, that's been accelerated even further. But I feel like 2014 was a big shift. I think there was an earlier shift prior to that. But I think around 2014 is when I really started being like, man, stuff is starting to go sideways in the West. Now, I think there's a whole bunch of different reasons for that. Some of it is quite detailed and complex. I mean, some of it goes back to ideas that were implanted. Do you know what the Frankfurt School is?
No, but I might have heard of it if you tell me the back end.
Okay, well, the Frankfurt School was essentially a group of thinkers. This is going back to, I want to say, the 50s or 60s. These are thinkers who, the Jacques Derrida and Foucault, people who brought in these ideas of postmodernism and things like that. Then you had people like John Money, who was one of the originators of modern gender theory. The notion that sex and biology. They
were critical of capitalism and.
Yeah, so you had the obviously Marxist thinkers, postmodernism, Marxism, gender theory, certain aspects of third, fourth wave feminism, etc. Just a lot of these, to use the term Gad Saad has coined, what he calls idea pathogens, right? Ideas that are not rooted in reality, but which have possibility to transmit from person to person, especially when you put them into academia, or you put them into corporations, or you put them into governments, etc. So I think that these ideas have been around for many decades, but they used to be very fringe. They used to be limited to certain areas of academia, like the social sciences. And then due to multiple factors, they've all come to a head in the past decade. This is why you're now seeing people talking about things that they never were before, and believing and having these strange ideas, whether it's about race or about gender or about sexuality or about coming the resurgence of open socialism, a lot of these ideas which about, I don't know, like talking about the USA, I mean, let's just go back to say 2008, when Obama was president, or when Obama was running for president. A lot of the ideas that are currently being espoused now and that are being promoted about, whether it's straight white men being evil and all white people having this privilege and black people being inherently oppressed and white supremacy being everywhere, or the notion that you can not, a man isn't necessarily a man or a woman is not necessarily a woman. You can also be non-binary. You can make up your own gender and, you can make up your own pronouns, all this, like just 2008 is not that long ago. All of these ideas and notions were not, even with someone who's very progressive and liberal, they would have thought like, no, that's nonsense. That's crazy. Whereas now, if I come out on TV and I say, yeah, there's only two genders and you can't actually a man can't actually turn into a woman, vice versa, people will be like, oh my gosh, like that's so controversial. And it's like, none of you believed that 10 years ago. So what happened is what I talk about, like this rift in the matrix. It's like what happened where some of these objective things, right? There's plenty of room for opinions and discussions and people having their own perspectives on things, but we've moved out of the realm of reality, right? People are denying certain things which are just simple reality. And this is also actually going on in this pandemic situation, right? Where people are saying, trust the science. They're saying, follow the experts. They're talking as if a lot of stuff is rooted in science, but it's just rooted in nonsense. Every country, every city, there are things that just do not make sense in the whole story. There's massive things that they should be talking about, which they're not. There's things that have changed and they're denying they've changed. There's things that have proven not to be effective and then they keep repeating them. There's a whole lot of stuff that's confusing. And to make it all worse, there's been this climate created, like I said before, where there's this chill, where people feel like they can't ask simple questions, or they're not supposed to, challenge anything, or they're not supposed to talk about this or talk about that. If you do, you're going to be hit with a stick, right? You're going to get labeled. You're going to be called a name. And hey, you're anti-science, you're anti-vax, you're this, you're that. Just like if you talk about some of the things I previously mentioned, you're racist, you're a white supremacist, you're sexist, you're transphobic, you're a misogynist. What people like to throw these labels out to shut down the conversation, shut down the argument. At an extreme level, maybe they say, hey, you shouldn't even be allowed to talk. You shouldn't be allowed on YouTube. You shouldn't be allowed on Twitter. You shouldn't be allowed on this and that. I mean, they deplatformed the sitting president of the USA earlier this year. I mean, yeah, that was this year, beginning of this year, right? Beginning of this year. Yeah. I mean,
maybe end of last year. Either way, within the last.
It was beginning right. January this year.
Within the
January
last
this year. I mean, 9 months. A lot of people, like, regardless of how someone listening to this, regardless of what somebody thinks about Donald Trump, the notion that these social media companies simultaneously and in a coordinated fashion deplatformed the sitting president of the USA. Whether or not you like him doesn't matter. That is deeply troubling. That is very, very concerning. I mean, and I think so many people, like you said, because people are so wrapped in their emotions and their personal biases, they're not understanding the precedent that's being set here. I think the word precedent is very important. A lot of what's been troubling me over the past 12 to 18 months has been the precedents that are being set. We're now living in a world and in a society where you have so-called liberal, democratic, supposedly free countries who have turned into authoritarian tyrannies, where people are openly pushing for segregation. People are pushing for discrimination. People are advocating that their fellow citizens and neighbors should be harmed or should be punished. Why? Because they don't want to take a particular medicine? Since when? Like, what is going on in our society? Since when is it okay to stop people going outside and stop them hugging their parents and seeing their friends? Since when in Australia is there a rule you can't come in the country, you can't leave the country, you can't go more than a mile away from your house? If you do, the police might beat you. Police assaulting children, assaulting old women. Why? For their safety? We're beating you. Like, this is some North Korean, China stuff. Like, people are here talking about, oh, I'm worried. I'm like, it's here. people sometimes they're like, man, you shouldn't use words like tyranny and totalitarian and authoritarian. Those are too hard. Like, dude, if you can't call what's happening in places like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, much of Europe, even some of the blue states here in the US, if you can't call that tyranny and authoritarianism, I mean, what do you need? They're building camps in Australia. They're building camps. They're calling them quarantine facilities. But like, what's going on here, guys? Like, we have history. We've seen this before. Since when was it a good idea to create a two-tier society and start discriminating against people and excluding certain people from certain places and giving other people certain privileges which aren't privileges, by the way. These are just things we all had back in January 2020, and it's all happened so quickly. So with a lot of what I do and why I've been so sort of outspoken and passionate on this issue is simply because as a student of history and someone who thinks and has the ability to see forward, I'm seeing so many concerning and dark signs and things happening and things people are saying, not just leaders, but also people in the general public, who I know are not the majority. But the problem is that so many people in the majority aren't speaking up loudly enough. So part of why I do what I do is to encourage other people to give them some space. I'm like, look, I'll take those first few bullets, I'll take those first few arrows, but we need more people to speak up and just say, look, this isn't right. We're supposed to be a free society. People should be able to make their own choices and their decisions. Maybe someone thinks this better, someone else thinks that's better, but that's up to them. That's what it's always been my entire life, your entire life. That's how it's been. And it's not worth throwing all of that away to, in the fake name of public health and safety. It's absolutely insane to me. And I've always been more worried about that than any virus.
So let's talk about where you feel like the control is coming from, and two, if people aren't understanding the logic of how something like, there was an Instagram influencer, I think she was a model, 6 million followers. The simplest post, I think you guys should have a choice whether you with your body. I think you should have a choice with the vax or whatever. Just like they ripped her apart.
Yep.
And I'm like, that if you don't see that, there's a problem in society if that happens. If someone actually speaks freely and then they tear her apart because she speaks freely, there's a problem. A huge problem. Same with Nicki Minaj too.
Yep. And she speaks freely. She's advocating for other people's own basic rights and civil liberties, right? This is the weirdest thing, right? Why are people getting backlash for supporting concepts like freedom and basic medical autonomy and the ability for adults to make their own decisions, right? None of that has ever been controversial. So there's literally been a mass brainwashing which has taken place. I can't use any other term. It's been a psyop. It's been a brainwashing where you've converted a certain percentage of the population, millions of people, who are now openly pushing for very authoritarian, very tyrannical ideas, notions, and policies. And there's been this inversion where your health is your responsibility. It always has been, right? When you're a child, maybe it's your parents to some degree, but if you are an adult, your health is your responsibility. If you got sick in 2018, the notion that you would blame that on everybody else or somebody else, that would be absurd. Or the notion that you're going to go around acting like you're sick when you're not sick, or treating other people as if they are sick when you have no reason to believe that they are sick. Everything has been inverted. It was always healthy until proven sick, innocent until proven guilty. Now it's guilty until proven innocent. It's sick until proven healthy. When someone's had, they've had both their jabs and they're still running around outside with 2 masks on, and they're saying, well, that other people could be sick. It's like, that's psychosis, man. Like, viruses are not new. Disease is not new. In 2019, no one was walking around in any city, in any country, assuming that everybody around them was sick, right? That potential was always there. It's always there. That's how we get a cold. That's how you get a flu. It's just one of those things that's there. But the notion that everybody needs to completely alter their own behavior and their way of life to appease your own fears or phobias or delusions in some cases is totally absurd to me. It's antithetical to freedom. If you're that scared, you can stay home. I support your right to stay home forever and to wear 18 masks and to take a shot every day if you want. I 100% support your right to do that. And I always have. So just like that model, I think it was Doutzen you're talking about there. Yeah, I think the model who posted that, I believe it was Doubtson. I mean, literally, that's just saying, hey, it's up to you. It's up to you. That's not controversial. And the fact that someone should even receive any backlash for that, let alone that amount, really shows you where we are.
So I would like to assume the masses are somewhat intelligent. There's been so many things that I think they're so lined up and stacked on top of each other that they don't see from A to Z how stupid and funny it really is. Like, you had a tweet, you said you're supposed to get vaxxed to protect COVID. Then people get vaxxed, then they get COVID. And now you're saying the only people, you said one of the main people that are afraid of COVID are the people that got vaxxed. Why is there no talk? This is where I really want to have a dialogue. Why is there no talk about not eating fast food, or not smoking, or protecting your immune system, or working out, or going to the gym? Because that should be talked about at least a little bit health-wise. Health shouldn't just be pills and drugs and shots. I agree. It should be somewhat food, and you should be slapping McDonald's out of people's hands. So why is that not even? I figured if they wanted to disguise their ulterior motives, they could at least talk about that a little bit. You know what I mean?
Because it's not about health. It's about power, profit, and control, and it has been. There's no greater. I think I tweeted this the other day that the most powerful and effective tyrannies hide under the mask of public health and safety. There's no greater tyranny, right? If you're tyrannical and you're just like straight up evil and you're just doing things to like be mean, like you're not going to last very long. But if you're really, really infringing upon people's rights and you're claiming you're doing it in the name of public safety or the greater good or health, then anyone who opposes you or criticizes you in any way, you can make them look psychotic. And that's what we've been having, right? What happens if you criticize lockdowns, or you criticize mask mandates, or you criticize vaccine mandates, or you criticize vaccine passports or whatever, right? You get, what do people call you? Hey, you don't care about people's lives. You're selfish. You want people to die. They'll start telling you, oh, my granddad died because of people like you or whatever, right? They'll go hard with the emotional blackmail. And most people succumb to that because they haven't built up the layers of protection to sort of be able to deal with that emotionally. So it's a very, very effective tactic, unfortunately. But again, this is not new. Fortunately, we have history to look at. It seems a lot of people don't look at it, but most bad people in history, they don't just do things under the guise of like, hey, I just want to be mean and I just want to hurt people. It's like, no, there's a greater good. There's some higher noble purpose that they've created, and you can always use that as an excuse. And I think that a lot of Western leaders in particular, not just Western, but a lot of them, they've become drunk on power. They've never had this much power in their lives. Every single Western leader now, Biden, Trudeau, Ardern, Boris Johnson, Macron, all of them now have power that they never previously did. And what happens when they get that? You see, oh, wow, look, we've suddenly got a whole bunch of mini dictators, right? All of a sudden, you can't even tell the difference between some of these leaders and people who previously people were calling authoritarians and fascists and dictators and so on and so forth. It's the same thing, right? Are people voting for all of this? No, it's just being forced upon people. Did people want to have their businesses shut for months on end? Did people want to do this? No, people are just being forced to do this and forced to do that. And that's all I oppose, right? My beliefs, all that's happened in the past 18 months it's more than 18 now, man. It's like, I don't know, how long have we been? 20 months? I mean, I've literally just upheld the same beliefs that I had back in January last year. And I'm now finding myself on the side of some people thinking that somehow controversial, and there's nothing controversial with it. And by the way,
it's very logical, actually.
Let me remind people that all of this is over a virus that has a 99.9% plus survival rate in the majority of the population. If you're elderly and or have comorbidities, we've known this from the beginning, then you are particularly at risk. It's very far from a death sentence, but you're particularly in a higher risk category. But if you are young and you are remotely healthy, then honestly, this thing is a nothing burger for the vast, vast, vast majority of people. So all of this stuff that's going on globally, all of these different countries is all over this. I mean, when I left the UK 2 months ago. COVID was the 26th cause of death in the UK when I left 2 months ago. I don't know where it is now. It's probably like in the 40th, right? 26th. But what is getting 90% of people's attention, 90% of the media?
And fear,
90%. Fear. It doesn't make any sense, right? People will then say, someone will hear this and they'll say, man, come on, like 4 million people have died, over 4 million people have died worldwide over this during the start of the pandemic. During that same time frame, 100 million, approximately 100 million people have died of everything else. 100 million. Okay. No one even talks about that. People don't even know that. In an average year, 60 to 65 million people globally pass away. Also, with this particular virus, the average age of death is over 70. In the UK, it's over 80, right? So we're not even talking about something that's going through and wiping out children and wiping out teenagers and adults. Something where even if the response is way too far and is a massive government overstep, I could at least be like, okay, but this is like truly a very devastating disease. And it blows my mind. I mean, when you say that out loud, that all of this has happened over a virus with a 99.9% plus survival rate for most of the population, I mean, that puts it in perspective. I mean, if you look at pandemics in the past, there's pandemics in the past that dropped the population of countries.
Polio and population. Zuby, I want to read this because I read this
okay.
a year ago and I laughed. Not laughed, but I was like, this is why I knew it was madness. I mean, the things that kill more people than the coronavirus, it's been cancer, heart disease, suicide, mosquitoes, smoking. These things kill more people than the COVID did. But none of those are talked about. No. And everyone still moves in fear when mosquitoes kill more people. Why aren't people talking about mosquito spray?
There's something really powerful about this, and it says a lot about the human psychology, which is the notion of a transmissible disease that transfers from person to person. If you wanted to create an authoritarian regime, you can't ask for a better gift than this, because it causes people, and this has been the worst thing that's come out of all this, is millions of people have been trained to fear other human beings, right? Simply seeing someone's face, somebody breathing near you, someone coming too close to you, right? People have now been programmed to fear that. Not everybody, but a significant chunk of the population has been programmed to simply fear another human being smiling with their face uncovered, breathing fresh oxygen, right? That is disturbing. That's why it's so easy for people to fall into this rhetoric about the unvaccinated and how, and creating this false binary again, right? This term, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, it's so stupid because vast majority of people are both, right? There's tons of vaccines. Again, this shows the obsession on this one particular virus because there's dozens of vaccines. Most people are vaccinated and unvaccinated, right? I'm not vaccinated against rabies or like yellow fever or whatever. I am vaccinated against measles, like mumps, whatever, right? So most people are a combination of these things. No one used these terms before. It's unprecedented, and it's creating this artificial division, which has become a real division, where the powers that be want it to be. Certainly politicians, media are firing this all up. I'm getting the amount of messages I've received from people saying, man, I've been uninvited from Thanksgiving dinner this year because I haven't taken the shot, or my sister doesn't want me to come to the wedding unless I take the shot. Like, people have broken up this has broken up marriages and families, and I'm like, what are you people doing? This is insane. Like, imagine if you could talk to yourself back in 2018 or 2019 and just explain this, right? Just like, has anyone ever lost a friend because they didn't take a flu shot? Has anyone been shunned by their family members for not taking? No, it would be absurd. It would be totally ridiculous, but it's just as ridiculous as what's going on with this. And that's my concern, man. That's my concern. I'm just like, look, guys, if you're not careful, we've been heading down. This is a dark path. Humanity's been here before. Everywhere we've been before, we can go again. People need to remember that. We haven't massively evolved in the past 100 years where all the bad stuff that happened, say, even in the 20th century, we're totally over that. We got freedom, we got liberty, we won, it's over, the good guys won. I'm like, guys, human beings are the same, they have the same nature. What we do have and our advantage, which we should use, is we can look back at the past and we can go, let's not do that again.
And another thing too, that's so well put. Another thing is, one of the reasons I haven't watched the news in years is because there's a strict agenda. And when there's an agenda, the truth becomes secondary. That's just that's a fact. And there's been people that say the news is fake, it's exaggerated, it has an agenda. And those people are called conspiracy theorists. Kirk, you said this a while back. It looks like most of the conspiracy theories in the last 2 years are coming true. It's really crazy. All these conspiracy theorists are actually truth tellers and actually reality seekers, and they actually know what's happening versus the people that are manipulated. But do you agree, news-wise? I feel like that's the most powerful force right now they're using, because when you're in fear, it is easier. This is just through history, people know this. It's easier to manipulate when you're in fear. It's easier to control somebody when you're in fear. It blows my mind. I'll be at the gym, Zuby, for 3 minutes. I'll look at the news. I'll look up and I'll kind of laugh. And I'll be like, people killed, wear double masks, do this outside. It's traveling outside. It's traveling through trees. And I'm like, I just got annoyed in 30 seconds. I cannot physically, I can't even fathom someone. And we know people in our family. There's people that we know that sit there, 5 o'clock news, 30 minutes, tuned in, almost like they're taking notes on their iPhone from the news. Like, I can't imagine the fear they live in. So I think it makes sense from that aspect, but how do we get people to seek truth, not news, and use logic, not emotion? How do me and you, as people that have some influence, try to continue to share with people, the news doesn't have your best interests in mind. They have millions and billions and control and power and profits in mind. Is it because the news was so normal 50 years ago for our grandparents that it kind of trickled down, where news is just, you got to be informed. You got to be informed. I'd rather say you got to know the truth versus be informed, because being informed, people are still manipulated. So what are your thoughts on the news and the manipulation going on and the fear from the news that cause people just to move so fearful these days?
Yeah. I think a lot of mainstream news has been extraordinarily irresponsible, not just now, but for the past several years. If I think even just back to my childhood, sure, media sources had their biases and they were imperfect, but it was not like it is now. It was really not this level of open propaganda, huge levels of bias, and being so partisan. This is a big part of the problem. And what I encourage people to do is, I like to say that I don't like to tell people what to think. I try to tell people to think, right? I want people to think and to ask questions and to challenge things. And, if I say something that doesn't make sense, hey, challenge me. If I say something, you have a question, ask. Like, I'm big on open dialogue, because as I've said previously in another podcast, there's only 3 ways to solve any conflict. It doesn't matter if it's interpersonal, if it's between countries, family, friends, whatever. Number 1, conversation, discussion, debate. Number 2, separation, segregation, divorce. Just go our separate ways. Number 3, physical violence. That's it. Those are the only 3 options you ever have to solve a conflict. So I'm a huge advocate for the first one. People need to talk. People need to talk, have discussions, express your concerns. If you're in a workplace and, man, again, I'm getting hundreds of messages from people, man, I work in this place and they're mandating this and I'm worried about that. I'm like, yo, don't tell me. Don't tell me. You have to raise these concerns with your employers, with your coworkers, with other people. Talk to people. You're not alone. There are millions and there's billions of people right now who are feeling fearful and anxious. In this case, in fact, often about the same thing, which is a very unique situation to have all these people around the world in all these different countries and cities actually sort of feeling the same thing. So talk, have conversations, express your concerns, ask questions throughout this whole thing, right? Throughout this whole pandemic, every single day, every week, all of these so-called experts and public health officials and scientists, they should be having open public panels where they're discussing all of these things, and people are asking questions and they're challenging and they're, hey, explain this. Hey, this doesn't make sense. What about this? What about that? If we had a true, open, honest society and we were trying to get to the truth, that's what it would be. That is science. Questioning science is science. Science is not supposed to be some sort of radical dogma of secular religion where you can't ask questions and you must just trust High Priest Fauci or whatever it is, right? They're acting like there's only one doctor in the whole country of America. There's only like a handful of scientists. It's absolutely absurd. And scientists and doctors and even actual experts who are challenging the narrative are being questioned. In some places, they're being censored. They're being deplatformed. I'm like, come on, guys. This is not only is it insane, it's insanely dangerous. It's insanely dangerous because just because you've got even if you have a consensus, and this, I don't even think there is a consensus, but even if you have a consensus and you have a majority, it doesn't mean the majority is right. The majority's been wrong many, many times. The majority is often wrong. And you need to be able to have these conversations, right? All these things you brought up, man, about other aspects of health. Hey, what about, why are you closing the gyms and reopening fast food restaurants? What about this? Why don't we talk about obesity? How about vitamin D? What about zinc? How come you're ignoring the fact that hundreds of millions of people have already had COVID and now have natural immunity, which is in fact stronger than vaccine-induced immunity? Why isn't that being mentioned? Why don't we talk about that, right? How come you said that we shouldn't wear masks and then like you're now trying to force people to wear masks? Like what changed in between those things? What about this? Oh, hundreds of millions of people have now had the shot, and what's happening? People are still getting COVID. They're still spreading COVID. Wait, hang on. Was that supposed to happen? Can we discuss this? Right? Can we ask these questions? Can we have that? That's what it should be. That's what it should be. And I think that is the way forward. Dialogue. So yeah, that's absolutely huge. So I think the best thing you and I can do, Peter, is to encourage conversation, whether people agree, disagree, partially, whatever. Just bring all these different people to the table and like, look, this is what's going on. These are the concerns. This is what we know. This is the facts. This is the data, not trying to manipulate it and hide things and whatever. Just like, look, this is the situation, right? Right now they're trying to push all these jabs on children. Why? Right? We know children are not at risk from this. In the entire USA, I think you've had under 500 children in 20 months die from this particular virus. Under 500. You've got a country of 330 million people. I think about 70 million children. Like what is going on? What's the risk to them if they do take it? What about the boosters? Now they're saying, oh, you might need a third booster. You might need a fourth. All of these things are huge questions. They're massive elephants in the room, and people are there like, oh, I can't talk about that. Can't talk about that. It's like, actually, you can. You actually can. So I think people need to understand that they have permission. If you don't think you're allowed, I'm giving you permission right here. You've got permission from Zuby to discuss all of this openly.
More dialogue. I remember I went through a stage of studying some of the world's greatest philosophers, some of the world's greatest debaters, some of the world's just most respected, not just businessmen, but people that I feel are world-class, that really are certain in what they do. And they're great at taking someone else's perspective and learning from it. And almost all of them talked about how debate was part of their lifestyle growing up. Debate and arguing arguing for facts was part of their childhood. Their parents made them argue at the table. If they had a fact that they exaggerated, they called them out and they would make them prove their points and hear both sides. I feel like that's what we're lacking. And personally, I think real emotional intelligence and emotional maturity is disagreeing with somebody, but not getting offended or triggered, and actually having a mature dialogue that results in a sharper perspective. And these days, I think the easier it is to trigger somebody, the more they need to work on their emotional maturity. That's just in my head. I feel like that's just as real as it gets. And sometimes if I feel go ahead.
So what's been going on? You asked me before about what's been happening, especially over the past few years. And what's happening with everything is, instead of trying to encourage people to be stronger and more resilient, they're trying to nerf the world. Okay. So instead of telling you, hey, lose some weight, get stronger, exercise, take care of your diet, perhaps supplement, get some good sleep, make sure you drink enough water. Instead of saying that, instead of trying to strengthen the individual, is trying to nerf the world. This is also happening emotionally, right? What's been, I was in university, I left university 2007, right? When I left in 2007, there was if you said safe space or trigger warning, no one knew what these things meant. Microaggression, words being violence. What? I grew up with sticks and stones may break my bones, words may never hurt me, right? So instead of encouraging people to just be stronger emotionally, physically, mentally, encouraging people to be tougher, they're just trying to make the world weaker, right? Just trying to nullify and weaken and nerf absolutely everything. And I think that's actually part of what's put us in this hole, because you were just talking about people getting triggered just off of a disagreement or just hearing a word, or, you know, seeing something, oh my gosh, like I just saw this one thing and I'm triggered and I'm angry. It's honestly, this is behavior of toddlers. That's how toddlers behave.
I see it.
Yeah.
I see it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I legitimately heard the other day an ad on the radio in the middle of a pandemic from the Obesity Council and how we should treat people that are obese kinder and not exclude people, you know, in the middle of a pandemic that is primarily affecting people that are unhealthy. Instead of pushing vitamins or exercise, it's McDonald's commercials and treat obese people fairly.
Yep. I just saw a body positivity ad. I was in the gym this morning and I saw a body positivity ad in the gym. And it's so funny. I had that same thought. I was just like, wow, people keep saying we're in the middle of a pandemic and whatever, and you're promoting this. Oh, not only this, you know, what about all the firing of healthcare workers, right? Which one is it? Are the hospitals overwhelmed, or is it fire the healthcare workers? Like, you can't have both. There's so much nonsense going on. Like I feel like there's like over 100 things that I could list in the past 20 months.
We could have a 5-hour conversation.
Yeah, it blows my mind, right? One second I'm seeing people saying the hospitals are overwhelmed and the ICUs don't have enough capacity, and then 2 minutes later they're talking, you know, threatening to fire doctors and nurses and technicians if they don't want the jab, even if they've already contracted COVID and have recovered from it and have the antibodies. It's like, it's a cult. Honestly, it's insane. And a problem with cults is people don't know when they're in one. Right? Like, so people are just running with this madness, and the percentage of people who haven't been swept into it are just looking up like, what on earth is going on, especially at this stage, right? You could understand people maybe going crazy in like February, March 2020. People didn't know what was going on. They didn't have data. They didn't have facts. They didn't have statistics. They were seeing nonsense and propaganda coming out of China. But at this stage, I'm like, man, we're almost in October 2021. I mean, everyone who wants the shot has had the shot, literally, in the West. The numbers are, in terms of deaths, have massively declined compared to what it was previously. The virus is going to be endemic. You've got various treatments out there, which, by the way, people are still suppressing. You know, it's like, okay, we've got all of this information from hundreds, like every country. We have information from every country. And some places have just, you know, gone back to saying, you know, you have the Texases and Floridas and Sweden and Albania. You have countries and cities where they're just like, yo, back to normal, or they never left from normal. And then you've got other places where it's just like tightening, more mandates, more lockdowns, more this, more that. And it's just like, man, this is, people need to wake up quick.
And that's why you're here, man. Oh, go ahead.
Did you know this, Peter? I think I told you this 2 or 3 weeks ago, that if you physically abuse your significant other, you can get like 3 or 5 years in jail. If you fake a vaccine card, you can get 7 years, and it's a $250,000 fine if you fake a vaccine card.
So they'd rather have you beat your significant other. Interesting.
Yeah, it's obviously one of those is it's clear which one is more egregious according to the beloved government.
Well, if you do need one, they're giving out like a month of free donuts if you get the jab. So I wanted to
weird, man.
Cancel culture. There's been a lot of people asking in the comments and asking and sharing. What's your thoughts on cancel culture? Like, has your career been impacted negatively because you speak your mind? And I'm assuming your career's blown up even more because you speak your mind, because most people are fearful. But many people are afraid of being canceled. I'm knowing myself. I'm not famous. I'm not big. I have a decent amount of followers, but I'm not famous. If I was famous and I got canceled, in my mind, I know myself and I know my intentions. I'd rather speak my truth than be canceled than be quiet and kind of just hide in isolation. Maybe I'm different, but why are you not at all afraid of being canceled, called out, ridiculed? What's the main reason?
I think that's partly how we're wired, man.
Yeah.
I think it's a certain personality type, right? I imagine that we're both somewhat disagreeable in terms of the personality, in terms of the big 5 personality traits, and you're not someone who feels like you have to go with the flow and go with the herd. You can never go against the grain, right? Like that's just how I'm wired and you're wired, right? The truth is more important than people's feelings to me. Like in all honesty, right? Like I'm a very kind person. Like I love human beings. I'd never go out of my way to intentionally hurt or upset someone for the sake of hurting or upsetting them. But getting to the truth is more important than someone being triggered or being offended or this or that. And so for me, the truth is the sort of top virtue, or at least trying to seek it, right? Sometimes I'm wrong. And so that's a part of it. In terms of wider cancel culture only works in combination with cowardice culture. If people are strong and resilient and courageous, cancel culture becomes absolutely impotent. And when I say this, I'm also talking about employers and coworkers and so on standing up for people, right? So if you run a company and, you know, one of your employees, people are trying to cancel him and he hasn't actually done anything wrong or anything super egregious or criminal, and they're just coming and yelling at you, you should fire this guy, whatever. Tell them to buzz off, right? Have some balls. Don't just like give in to a couple weirdos on Twitter because they're screaming at you, right? That's what people need to do. People need to stop apologizing for things they're not wrong for, right? Some influencer will get criticized for cultural appropriation for wearing some earrings or something stupid, right? Making a book on dumplings, and people are trying to attack someone because, hey, you're not Asian, you can't write a book on dumplings. Like all this dumb stuff, like really, really stupid stuff. People need to not apologize for that, right? Every time you apologize, you embolden the mob. They see the blood in the water and they go at you harder. Like if they know they can't do that and you don't take that crap, eventually they'll actually leave you alone, right? They'll leave you alone because they're like, man, we can't, these creatures hunt in packs, right? And they go for people who they think are weak and who will show that. So actually, if you stand boldly in front of them and just say, hey, bring it, like, let's go, then that's the best thing that you can do. Don't embolden the mob. Further than that, in terms of real cancellation, the real cancellation can only come from your own audience, right? You, Peter, can only be canceled by your own audience, your own customers, followers, so on and so forth, right? That's the real cancellation, when it's like your own audience turning on you. And if you keep it 100%, if you are real and you are authentic and you're genuine, then that also puts you actually in a more powerful position, because then people know to expect that. If you always, towed the line and you never, you go with all the mainstream narratives and whatever, and you build that type of audience, then that's the position so many of these celebrities are in, right? They've locked themselves into the situation
where they're
being
themselves
held
up for failure. Yeah,
they're being held hostage by their own audience. So now, if they wanted to be honest and truthful and authentic, then they get canceled by their own audience because they're like, hey, you can't. Nicki Minaj is probably experiencing this right now, but I love the fact that she's not apologizing, right? If at the first sense of pressure, she'd just been, oh, I'm so sorry, Barbs, like, I never meant to do this, make sure you go out and get your shot, right? Then they would have cheered, but that would have been like, man, that's like another major L, right? But in this case, it's like, no, she's standing her ground because she hasn't actually said anything wrong. She said, think carefully about what you put into your body. I agree with her. I absolutely 100% agree with her, just like I agree with that model. And typically I'm kind of in the camp of like, look, I'm not all into celebrity culture and caring about what pop stars and models have to say on everything, but because so many people are, it is important to have people at that level of fame and notoriety just being like, hey, look, this is my position. I'm not bound to the mob. I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to be coerced. And this is what I have to say. And I think that helps to embolden other people on a bigger scale.
And there was a talk about essential workers and non-essential workers. I found out through the pandemic, a lot of these athletes and entertainers, they're the most non-essential part of the culture. If they don't stand for truth. I found that out. And it's sad to see some people you respect and look up to be that manipulated or that weak or that bought out, or maybe they sold their soul for 500K. That's sad to see, but we know there's a bigger picture. You know what I mean? So I don't want to take too much of your time. I literally could go for another hour. I messaged you. I said, let's go for 30 to 45 minutes. It's been an hour. This is too fun for me because I want to educate people the right way. I want to talk real quick because you're huge on health. I want to talk about the importance, and I'm a big advocate for health. Health changed my life, my energy, my family's life. My focus has been second to none because I've focused on my health and my body. Working out, exercise, the right foods, just the right things. How important and what's the relationship between health and wellness and success and consistency in entrepreneurship and creativity in business. We talked before the call about how it goes hand in hand, but I think a lot of people that I see, a lot of young entrepreneurs, they're giving up their health to chase the dreams and the money, which is great, but it eventually catches up. And I think health is an uncomfortable topic for unhealthy people.
Yes. Okay.
So what's the correlation? Health, success, happiness, energy, consistency. Yeah, that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's important for people to recognize that health is more valuable than money. Health is more valuable than money. If you disagree with that, and he's not even in a particularly unhealthy stage, you know, would you trade your, say you're a 20-year-old listening to this, would you trade positions with Warren Buffett? One of the richest men in the world, but you have to also become 80 something years old, right? No, you wouldn't.
1,000,000% no.
Why? Because you're a time billionaire. He's a money billionaire, but you're a time billionaire. And so, or imagine if you got sick, right? If you had cancer, or you had terminal cancer or whatever, and you had 100 million, it's like you'd rather not have $100 million and not have like some huge illness than you'd rather be broke and healthy. Then any sensible person would rather be broke and healthy than extraordinarily wealthy in terms of cash, but sick or on their deathbed. So money is important, but health is more valuable than money. So if you're absolutely beating down your own health in the paper chase, then you're hustling backwards. And you're also going to have to pay for that, right? Because later down the line, maybe you're not thinking about it if you're young, but later down the line, you could develop all kinds of health issues, which are then going to literally cost you tons and tons of money, even financially,
and time.
Let alone what else it will cost you. Exactly. So another thing is to just recognize that you only get one body. So you can lose a ton of money. You could lose millions of dollars. You could lose thousands of dollars, and you can make it back. If you run your body totally into the ground, you die. You only get one body. You got one body. It's got to last you as long as you're going to live. And you don't want to wreck any of your major organs, your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, your body parts, your limbs, whatever it is, right? Your lungs, if you wreck them, then you're in major trouble. And a lot of stuff is not reversible. So I think this is a message that it's probably even more important for young people to hear, because when you're young, you can kind of think you're invincible and you bounce back from things quite quickly and your body recovers quickly, but that does change as you get older. So it's important to remember that you've got one body and it has to last you all the way through. There's people who literally treat their material products, their material goods, whether it's their car or their clothes or even their house, they treat it better than they treat themselves, which again is backwards. So think about it logically, and that's important. And then beyond that, in terms of actual performance, in terms of energy, in terms of being able to achieve and perform well, the healthier you are, the better you can do that. If you do want to be able to like hustle more and travel more and meet more people and not be tired all the time, perform better, you actually do need to take care of your health, your exercise, your sleep. Make sure you're getting enough water. You know, if you need any supplements, get those. Like, make sure stuff is on point, and you'll find that, you know, your mind and your body are so much more connected than people tend to realize. We talk a lot in these times about mental health. Mental health and physical health are so closely correlated, and that's another thing that people don't talk about. If you are in good physical health, then that tends to go hand in hand. Not in all cases, right? There can be situations, but tends to go pretty well hand in hand with mental health. If someone's struggling with mental health issues, and I were a doctor or some practitioner, my first thing would be to look at their diet, look at how much they're sleeping, look at their are you exercising, right? Look at those basic lifestyle factors. You know, are you drinking tons and tons of booze or doing drugs or whatever? Look at the lifestyle factors first. If all of those things are on point and there's still some issue, it's like, okay, maybe we got some real problem here. But so many things, both mentally and physically, can be cured through exercise, nutrition, and simple lifestyle changes. So I say all that to say, health is like up there. Health is like number one in terms of what is valuable and things people should be focusing on. And also it's a huge asymmetric bet, shall we say, especially if you think of something like exercise or nutrition. Like, we all got to eat anyway. Like, everyone eats. So make better choices with that, right? Like, you're going to eat anyway, so just make better choices. Not everything has to be perfect all the time, but if you eat better, you're going to feel better and you're going to have more energy. And then in terms of exercise, it doesn't take that long, you know? I mean, I spend what, 4 or 5 hours a week in the gym. That's not a lot. The average person watches how much TV a day? Doesn't the average person watch like 3 or 4 hours of TV a day or something ridiculous like that? Yeah. Or like spend 2 hours on social media. I spend more than 2 hours on social media a day, right? The notion that you don't have time to exercise is nonsense. Everybody has time to exercise. I know, even if you have kids, you got a job, whatever, having a kids and having a job, a lot of people around the world have that and they still exercise. So you just have to make things a priority. And if you do that, then it'll really, really pay off in other ways.
And your intelligence, I already knew you were sharp, but when I realized you had a book out, I realized a couple months ago you had a book out, and it was about fitness. And I'm like, wait, he's doing music, he's an advocate, he's speaking truth, and the book has nothing to do with any of that. It's about fitness. I'm like, oh, so he knows health is important and he knows everything else. So I'm like, this guy's the real deal. You said something in the interview, then we'll end it on this. You talked about in one of your interviews, you said that they asked something about your mission, and you're like, honestly, what I want to do, I'm out here trying to maximize and fulfill my potential. So you're like, above all else, I'm trying to maximize my potential. I just wanted to ask you, what does that look like? And maybe give some inspiration to people that have maybe felt like they've wanted to speak truth or in a rut, but they also want to maximize the potential. Because I'm the same way. You talk to my wife, I can't sleep sometimes because I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I want to do more and create more and help people. That's why I wrote another book. It's like, I almost feel like I'm not doing enough, which drives me to want to do more to maximize my potential. And I think that might be an achiever thing. I don't know what that is, but what does it look like to you to just maximize who you are as a human being? So when you're on your deathbed, you can look in the mirror and be proud of yourself and know you maxed it out and built a legacy.
Well, I think you can't help other people max their own potential unless you are doing the same yourself, right? If you, look at what you're doing right now and everything you're doing. If you yourself hadn't taken steps to improve your mind, your body, your knowledge, your business, your finances, all of that, everything that you do, it wouldn't be possible. All the people you've inspired and helped, you wouldn't have been able to inspire or help them. So in order to maximizing your own potential to someone might sound somewhat selfish, but it's not. It's like, you can't pour water from an empty jug, right? You have to fill it up first, and then you can help other people. And in fact, just by them watching you striving to maximize your potential, that also inspires them. And then you also gain knowledge. All the stuff I'm saying on this podcast, if you spoke to me 15 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to articulate myself like this. I didn't have like these ideas and the ways of seeing things. All of this has come from the quest for me to maximize my potential. I get excited at the concept of getting older. I'm like, man, I can't wait to see like how based I'm going to be when I'm like 50, right? I'm going to be like dropping some knowledge, right? I'm going to be on some Jordan Peterson, like ×2 stuff, right? Because I'm still like, look, I'm still a young man. Like, I'm still gaining, I'm still improving, I'm still building, I'm still getting better. And my fitness book came off the back of that, because I just thought, man, like I started training in my mid-teens, and I used to be a fat kid. I used to weigh more. I weighed more when I was 15 than I weigh now, right? Wow. And so I've been through this journey of fitness and nutrition, trial and error, trying this, trying that, all of that. It's like, man, it's selfish for me to keep all this knowledge to myself. There's billions of people out there who want to improve their bodies and their physique and to gain weight, lose weight, build muscle, get stronger, whatever their goal is. I know how to do that. I have that knowledge. So let me put something together that can help people. If you know how to build a business, or you have some skill or some ability or something you've achieved, write that book, create that podcast, like help other people, right? Create that YouTube channel. If you can help people improve their health, wealth, their happiness, their relationships, then you're not only is that a great business, right? But you're going to literally be making the world a better place. And it's a chain as well. Each person you inspire, they can then build and grow, and they'll go on and inspire other people, and they'll inspire other people. And it really ripples outwards, just like negativity can ripple outwards. We've been discussing that a lot on the podcast. Positivity can also ripple outwards when people see that and they're like, man, okay, that guy's inspired me. I want to go do what he's doing. He's encouraged me to do this. He's encouraged me to do that. He's taught me this. He's helped me with that. Then I think if we have that ecosystem, I think that's the beauty in what we're able to do, especially now with the internet. Sure, it can be a toxic place and you can get all the negativity, but there's never been an opportunity like this to have someone just with their ideas and with what they create to just put that out to a global audience, no matter where people are in the world. Because there's places where it might be hard to find mentors or successful people or smart people in your sort of narrow circle. But then you can go online, you can go on YouTube, podcasts, Twitter, whatever it is, essentially for free. And you can go and connect with some of the greatest minds in the world and some of the most successful people. And the time we're living in now, despite all the madness, there's never been more opportunities.
And if you guys can conceptualize anything, I think for you guys that really want some business knowledge, he's dropped so much business knowledge that you can use. Kirk wanted to follow up with the cancel culture. Do you think those that are willing to stand up against that will have an edge in entrepreneurship moving forward? And I feel like in entrepreneurship and business, you have to be polarizing. You have to not be like everybody else. And it comes with a price, to speak truth. But what better way to live? What better business to build? What better feeling laying in bed on your pillow at night, knowing you're standing in truth and knowing that the people that do business with you are there for the right reasons, and the other people, you don't care if they're with you or not because they're not thinking logically. I don't think there's a better way to live than actually being polarizing and being yourself. Would you agree?
Yeah, man. I absolutely agree, man. I can't be fake. It's not even an option. I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So it's like, look, I just got to be me. And also, you don't need to remember any lies. Once you start lying, you got to keep lying. If you just if you're just honest and authentic, then you don't need to remember what story you told last week, and make sure you're consistent. You just be you, and it works.
My mom told me that when I was like, my mom told me that when I was like 10. I was like, oh my God, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll never forget that too. There's just no point in lying. It's almost like showing like you fear what people think about you as well. I appreciate you, man. I think the world needs people like you, leaders stepping up and becoming the best at what they do and really sharing truth more than ever before in human existence. So seeing people like you speak your truth is such a breath of fresh air, I think, and I think everyone agrees as well. And I can't wait to get this interview out and to really introduce more people to you and for you to just continue to blow up and share your message, man. Much respect to you for who you are. And most importantly, people that follow me know I'm very selective with who I interview. And I turn down a lot of people that I just don't feel are world-class in every area. They might be great at business, but they're just not world-class parents or husbands or wives. I like people that are world-class and genuine human beings in every area. And you are definitely that. Someone that, besides business, besides music, besides entrepreneurship, you're a world-class human being. And that's what I appreciate about you, man. So much respect. By the way, guys, go to Zuby, teamzuby.com. And can they order your book even though it's sold out? Will they get it when they do order? I don't want to put too many orders on you in terms of the book. I know it's sold out.
The ebook and the audiobook are always available.
Okay, cool.
So those are available right now. The paperback, I'm going to do another run, most likely October, November. So stay tuned on that if you want a paperback.
And then Team Zuby, Zuby Music on IG, right? And then you're everywhere on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can follow him everywhere. He's always creating new content and creating new value for you guys to get inspired by. But if anything, is there any action steps, Zuby, we can give people before leaving? Anything they can maybe start doing differently to be more of an advocate for truth? So we can really, I genuinely believe, to turn this world around, it does kind of start with our youth. Yes, it starts with the top, the people in power, the politicians. But if we can't change them, people have to take a stand against what's happening. So what are like one or two action steps people can do moving forward to really just to make a change and really make a difference in this crazy world we live in? Yeah,
I would just say, speak up a little bit more. I think if everybody were 10% or 20% more bold and courageous and open in taking what's in their mind and actually vocalizing it, then I think a lot of the nonsense would be ended. So you don't need to go full Zuby. You don't need to be, the most outspoken person in the world out there, but just 10%, 20% in your private life, in your public life. If you see something wrong, say something. If you see something wrong, don't just ignore it or turn a blind eye, or something makes you really, really uncomfortable and worried, say something. say something, and you won't be alone. And by you saying something, you'll encourage other people to do the same.
Much respect, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you possibly in LA and doing some more collabs. Awesome. And on behalf of everyone watching and people that are going to watch, we appreciate you, man, for being the light that a lot of people need and for being logic when there's too much emotion.
Appreciate it, man.
And being a beast when there's too many clowns. I'm just kidding. I could go on and on. I appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of your night, and we will connect with you in the States when you're back in California and everywhere else you're going. Thanks, man.
Nice one, Peter. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed my video with Zuby, I think you're gonna really love this video right here, where I interviewed the one and only David Goggins, and we really dove deep in how to bulletproof your mentality so you can speak your mind and claim your freedom back and really become bulletproof mentally. So check this video out. I think you'll love it. Thank you again.
You have to be proud of yourself. And until you have pride, pride in yourself, you're gonna always be finding acceptance from other people. So for me, the second I was proud of myself and I realized where I was in life, I stopped holding people on a fucking pedestal.